Welcome to Tangible Talks podcast. In our biblical character series, we have taken a deep dive into Noah, Abraham, Jacob, and Joseph. Today, we're going to talk about Moses.
Moses introduces a major change in the Bible. We now move on from Genesis to Exodus, from patriarchal society to that of a group of leaders, all subject to the leading of God. From Genesis to Exodus, from relationship to law.
The multiplication of the children of Israel are now the beginning of the nation of Israel. Egypt, under the rule of the new Pharaoh, does not remember history and is ruling with evil and tyranny.
Even in this terrible time of slavery and harm, there is one constant that remains true: God. God Himself will deliver the nation of Israel, just as He promised Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph.
God, who is always faithful, works through a man and changes the history of two nations. Join us today as we begin our study of Moses on Tangible Talks podcast.
Hi, Jana.
Hey, Rita. We are in person today.
We are in person today. Who would have thought that?
This is the first time we've ever recorded in the same room. And we get to see each other.
So it's going to be really good.
Ironically, it's almost more strange.
I know. I agree.
So Rita decided to take a spontaneous trip up to Nashville, and I'm so excited that she's here and that we get to talk about Moses today. And it's our first one back from our summer break.
It's been a while since we've spoken.
It's been a while since we've recorded. Yes,
yeah.
we've spoken.
We did speak.
But it's been probably 5 weeks, close to a month at least.
Yes.
At least. So welcome back, listeners. We hope you've had a wonderful summer. We hope you guys got to enjoy some rest, some time with your family, some good food, grilling season, all the things. Before we jump into Moses, we wanted to share a little bit with you guys about what we've been doing with our summer break.
Yeah, well, we have been expanding on an idea that started 33 years ago with this little character that I came up with called Dusty, based off Psalms. And Jana just really took the concept and ran with it. And
that's a really nice way to say that I came in and took over.
No, I like mine better, and I think it works just fine. And so we're developing. We have already written, or Jana's written, and I've done the illustrations for our first Dusty book.
Yeah, a children's book.
And it's called Forgive Me, I'm a Little Dusty. And in it, we learn, or we're introduced to a character named Dusty and his friends. And we've also included in this children's book some scripture that we are basing a lot of the principles and patterns.
Yeah, and really one of the main ones being the golden rule. And so we're hoping it'll end up being a series of several books, and it will follow a little boy named Dusty and his close friends JJ throughout just difficulties that the kids experience, and how do we teach those biblical principles to our kids in a way that's entertaining to them, that they can learn from, and honestly that hopefully we can learn from as well. So we're really excited about it. Rita got it printed, so we both have physical book copies to hold in our hands. So it makes it feel a lot more real, just in the process of trying to figure out how to get it published now. So
yeah,
if any of you have any suggestions or contacts, please let us know, because that's honestly been the hardest part, just figuring out how to make it a reality.
We're flowing in the part that we should do, and now we're just waiting to team up with someone else. Yeah. And see where it goes.
Yeah, we're very excited about it. It's been about getting close to a year in the making. That might be a little gratuitous, maybe about 8 to 10 months, but it's been a while.
It's been a process, which, most things are a process. And so now we're getting back into the podcast again. I have missed it terribly. I've done a lot of reading on Moses since we've been taking a break. And I have to say, that the Moses that I see now is different than the Moses
Really?
of a year or so ago. Yeah, because I used to be so critical. And I've realized I'm hard on Moses because I'm hard on myself. So I'm hard on everyone else. I always looked at him making excuses on the mountain of God at the burning bush. And I just thought, come on, get it together.
See, I so relate to that because I'm hard to get started sometimes. Like, I'll come up with a lot of excuses why things, or I can't do something, or I can't do this, or da 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 da. And Jordan has to deal with this most often. And you've gotten to experience some of it too. But sort of once I get rolling, then it falls more into place. But I definitely relate to Moses in that I have a lot of excuses.
So I see Moses with different eyes. I've really taken the time to break apart each verse and to really think about it, to go on a walk or to sit and think about what would I do at that moment. And in that, I have seen the growth of Moses from the time that he was in the desert, from the time he left Egypt, until the Moses that climbs upon the mountain. So I'm hoping that what I've seen and what I've learned I'll be able to convey and maybe help those who are a little critical, dare I say self-righteous, and hard on other people, but we don't turn that finger necessarily on ourselves. So we're going to dig in to Moses.
All right. So where are we getting started?
Well, actually, I'm going to start in Isaiah.
Okay.
Which
detour.
Yeah, detour, which doesn't sound like that's the ideal place, but it's Isaiah 46:10. And I think you'll see where I'm going with this one. Hopefully you will. Who announces the end from the beginning and reveals beforehand what has not yet occurred. Who says, my plan will be realized. I will accomplish what I desire. And that is God speaking. And that he tells us the end at the beginning. So I think that we'll see how that relates to the Moses story when we dive deeper. And now I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 15. And he said to Abram, and this is God, know well that your offspring shall be strangers in a land not theirs, and they shall be enslaved and oppressed 400 years. But I will execute judgment on the nation they shall serve, and in the end they shall go free with great wealth. They shall go free with great wealth. That we need to keep that in mind. That's Genesis 15, 13, and 14. And then, and he said, I am God, the God of your father. Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will make you there into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I myself will also bring you back. This is Genesis 46, 3 and 4, and this is God speaking to Jacob when he's discovered that Joseph is alive. And Joseph has said, come down to Egypt. And then Hebrews 11:22. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, mentioned the exodus of the sons of Israel and gave instructions about his burial. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to you and lead you up from this land to the land he swore on oath to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Joseph made the sons of Israel swear an oath. He said, God will surely come to you. Then you must carry my bones up from this place. Genesis 50. So I just wanted to cover these. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses. That's not in Exodus. Most are in Genesis. Where God tells in advance, and to Abraham over 400 years in advance, what's going to happen. And here we are
And I think we hear that number 400 and like we can comprehend like that's a lot. But I mean, our country's not 400 years old.
It's not 400 years old.
So like when you really think about how long 4 centuries actually is, how many generations that is, it's a big,
That's a long time to remember.
that's a big event.
And so I just wanted to bring to mind that this is God's plan. It doesn't mean that he wanted his people to be in slavery, but he just knows the nature of humans. And so when we start in Exodus today, we're picking up on the end. It's the beginning of the end.
And I think the importance of recognizing, like you said, that's a long time to remember. That knowledge that he bestowed upon Abraham, that had to be funneled down through the generations for it to be remembered.
The children of Israel knew that a deliverer would come to them. They didn't know when, and they didn't know in what form. But they knew, and they cried out to God, how long must we suffer? When will this take place?
Yeah.
So I think it's important to look at how God is working, to learn the character of God, and look at how he always works in community with his people. And I'm thinking that in Genesis...
In community, I think is a big piece, and I struggle to understand that piece.
Well, and I mean, why would God tell Jacob, don't be afraid to go down to Egypt? And I think it's because Jacob learned from Isaac, who learned from Abraham, that they're going to a foreign nation.
Yep.
And so I also want us to keep in mind that if God did this to the nation of Israel and told Abraham and those who believed by faith in him that this would happen, we have to remember that God is still that God. And he will reveal to us, but now he doesn't go into great detail.
No.
He's not going to go into, seldom does he go into dates. Seldom does he do that, but I think we will see how God reveals to Moses. He tells him in advance things that he needs to know. And then we watch how Moses struggles with that. We watch how he grows in faith with, well, why did you send me down here? Hold on, you didn't. And by the end of it, we see that Moses is so full of confidence. He is not the same stutterer. And that gives me hope.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's very inspiring.
It gives me hope. So we're going to start the story of Moses in Exodus. We end with Genesis, and it's setting up the stage for Exodus. It's just a perfect setup. And the way out. Exodus means the way out. I just kind of like that. You know, when you get stuck in a situation and you're looking for a way out, a way of escape, the way out is generally through. And we'll see that that's exactly what happened with Israel.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of it just as exit.
Yeah.
To exit.
But the Red Sea showed you had to go through it. We need to go through, I'm going to say scary, but it can be very frightening. And I say that because most of the time when angels appear to people, first thing they said was, don't be afraid. Well, you do not tell someone not to be afraid unless you know that they're afraid.
Right.
And so God is teaching us, one, not to fear, two, to trust him, and that he has a way. And he's been telling us this since Genesis 15.
Yeah. Well, we have to go through those difficult times to get to where we ultimately are going to be. If you're like a baby and you just sit comfortably in a crib, you never develop. So the only way to develop and to grow all these strengths and skills is to go through these trying times.
But we want to run from them.
Of course.
Or we want a magic wand that takes us out of this tough situation into another one.
Well, and so many times, and you see this with so many of the characters that we've had, we always look for the easiest way out.
Yeah.
I don't like where I am. What's the easiest thing I can do? And that's really the right path to go down.
It's not the right path. I can't think of any time where if I went through a struggle, that it wasn't the best thing in the long run. Wouldn't want to repeat it, but it really turned out to be a blessing. And so in studying Moses and reading Exodus, we discover many wonderful things. One, the only division among human beings that matter is moral, not ethnic, not national, or economic. There are two pharaohs mentioned. I want you to know that I've been working on pronouncing the name Pharaoh.
It kind of makes me a little sad. I liked Pharaoh.
But, I've been sitting and saying, Pharaoh. Okay. There are two pharaohs mentioned. One was good, and that was the one that Joseph served under. The other evil. That was the difference in the two, not Egyptians, but good and evil. That's the distinction in mankind. And I can't say that I ever really thought about
And
that.
aren't we naturally drawn to that? Like when you think about the best stories of our culture, they emphasize that division between good and like to me Star Wars really comes to mind, or Harry Potter. Like there's such an emphasis on that moral
The good and
distinction.
evil. And yet we think that it's racist or it's sexist or it's those things.
It's not.
When I don't believe it is. I think it's just as simple as good and evil. And that's what God says, is the difference between good and evil, light and dark. And this is a quote from Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. There are two races of men in this world, but only two. The race of the decent man and the race of the indecent man. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about that. And that's where we start in Exodus. There's a different Pharaoh in charge. And I know that we're talking about Moses, but I think that we have to consider what's going on at this time, because that is really the purpose of Moses being born and what sets the stage for who Moses will become and why he needs to be this deliverer. And so we begin Exodus knowing the end from the beginning, but lacking the details. And what a tangible lesson. We begin our journey with Christ, knowing the end from the beginning, but not knowing all the details.
Not knowing most of the details.
Well, yes. So, Exodus chapter 1. Joseph died, and his brothers, and all that generation. Wow. There's no one that's an eyewitness of that account. So we're coming into a time, and it's very important, it sets the stage. Joseph's dead, and all of the people in that generation are dead. And that can be Pharaoh, it can be the leaders that were there, but we're talking about someone that has no idea about the famine and what was done at that time.
Right.
But the Israelites were fertile, prolific. They multiplied and increased very greatly, so the land was filled with them. Now, see, this sounds like that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Because in the Garden of Eden, it was be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to do. But this blessing, in the eyes of an evil person, is not a good thing.
Right. Because they're jealous, and then they're scared that they're going to outnumber them, and yes.
Fear, control, all the fruits of the Spirit, right?
I was about to say all the opposites of the fruit.
All the opposites.
Yeah.
A new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he, Pharaoh, said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are much too numerous for us. Let us deal shrewdly with them. But let's develop a tactic. How can we solve this problem?" Well, when did it become a problem?
Right.
So we're going to conjure up a problem and a solution to it.
Yeah. Shrewdly, that's a very
Shrewdly.
interesting word, too.
So that they may not increase. Otherwise, and here's what could really happen. Otherwise, in the event of war, they may join our enemies in fighting against us and rise from the ground. Well, if you treated them with respect, why would they?
Yeah, why isn't there unity?
Right.
What is truly at the heart of the matter there where there's such division? It would be nice to somewhat know why. Is it just they looked different? I mean, I don't know.
Exactly. Why is it that this Pharaoh sees this as a bad thing? And here is a point that really got me to thinking. At this point, Pharaoh is not given a name. He's only given a title. And later on, we're going to have all these people mentioned, even the midwives of the Hebrews. Their names are mentioned, but Pharaoh's name is not mentioned. And so I thought about that, and I went, well, Satan is a title, it's the Satan, and the devil.
Yeah, they're never mentioned.
God is so interesting. He doesn't even name them.
Well, take a tangent. Another thing that happened over the summer is I don't think I've actually told the listeners about Sydney. So, Sydney, my old high school, my close to 15-year-old mini LSD passed away at the beginning of summer. And so last week, we got a new puppy, a little Sheltie named Jasper. And that is who is whining. He was chewing on a busy bone, but he is now finished busy bone. So let me get him taken care of, and then we'll speak up. All right, we're back.
Okay. So at this point, Pharaoh, who is not given a name, I think is very interesting. He's the one with the problem. His problem is not remembering. Pharaoh either does not acknowledge the good of Joseph for the Egyptian people, or he quickly forgets the good. And I know that we're studying Moses and we're looking at Pharaoh right now, but I think that the condition that Pharaoh is in is one that we can fall into. Not remembering and not being grateful. I mean, most churches will have a communion table. Maybe not the newer ones, but when I grew up, there was a table at the front of the church, and it said, "Do this in remembrance of me." The Lord said, "Do this in remembrance of me." It's sometimes we need to remember. We need to remember the good, not the evil that people do. So this is setting the stage into the world in which Moses is going to come.
I think, and just a side note on that, I think a lot of times people just don't want to acknowledge things that happened in the past too. Like something that they may have heard, passed down through time, and then they just don't either want to believe it or don't believe it for whatever reason. And so they don't honor or acknowledge it because they just don't care. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
maybe there is some self-righteousness in that.
Well, Pharaoh, he considered himself a god. We're going to see that he did. So this one act of forgetting and not being grateful can open the door to great evil. And this is what's going to happen. We go from one person, Pharaoh, to Pharaoh saying, so Pharaoh has the problem. Pharaoh has a problem. And then he then goes to the people and says, look at the Israelites. There's too many of them. They could. We better. Yeah. We need a plan.
Fear-mongering. Just starting to develop all of this drama that didn't have to be there.
That continues throughout history.
Oh, absolutely.
The pattern continues. We learned nothing.
Hitler.
Yes. And I'm not going to get into politics, but definitely goes on. We go from the evil of Pharaoh to the evil of many, the taskmasters. And they're set up to implement the plan of this Pharaoh. But in this dark place of attempting genocide, the act of individuals set the stage for Moses. Now we're going to see how even in this horrible period, there are few people that act, and their actions set the stage for the deliverer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that that's just a broad or a really good example of how no matter the circumstance, God can always find the pinpoints of light to change the situation.
And it doesn't have to be a great number. And this is where
just a little speck of light will cut through the darkness.
Yes. And the thing is, it's generally women in Moses' life. We will see the women that will make a difference. And most societies look at women as subnormal or not. We don't meet par. We don't do whatever.
Yeah, I was going to say subpar.
Subpar. But
Inferior.
look at what God is going to do with that. He's going to use the women and the child. So, the courage of the Hebrew midwives. So they have their names. Their names are given Shaphrah and Puah. Their names are given, but Pharaoh's is not. And because of their stance against Pharaoh, they were supposed to kill the children. If it's a boy, kill him. If not, let the child live. And they rebelled. They went against it. And you should hear the confrontation between Pharaoh and them. It's really beautiful. It's a really great way of how they manipulate Pharaoh. And manipulation isn't really a good trait, but they knew how to speak to him in the language that he would love and say, oh, you know those Hebrews. So they spoke a word, but God blesses them. Then, because that didn't work, and notice that Pharaoh puts it off on the midwives. He passes the buck. He doesn't want to get his hands dirty.
Right.
Then Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every boy that is born you shall throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. Exodus 1:22. This is a situation in which Moses is born. And there's a lot of things going on. Can you imagine having your child ripped out of your arms and thrown into a river?
No.
That would be hard to imagine. And this is what's taking place. Why the boys and not the girls? And I think that's a deep subject. I think you can look at other possibilities. The only other time that we see something like this happen is when Jesus is born.
Yeah.
And so the enemy is manipulating behind the scenes in the darkness this person, Pharaoh, because the timing, even the enemy knows the timing's coming. And it's going to be a male.
Yeah.
Let's rid them. Let's get rid of them.
And I even think it's somewhat just with the female and the males. I do think you're right. I think that they knew that it was going to be a male, and that was maybe why. But also, just from Pharaoh's perspective, it could have just been that he didn't view the women as a threat.
Yes. Or, well, we'll just marry them and then we'll just take care of the whole race. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. In this situation, Moses is born, and this is what's taking place. So then we go to Exodus 2. So we have an entire chapter of Exodus that's doing nothing but setting the stage to what's coming. And that's something we should pay attention to. And we more or less get that with Jesus. Herod, we have the three wise men, this is what's going on, and that was setting the stage. So we have the same thing going on here. Amazing that Moses is the deliverer and Jesus is our deliverer, our Savior. So Exodus 2 introduces us to a normal man and woman. Moses' mom and dad, they're just normal people born into the tribe of Levi, which we will learn later is not accidental. Moses needs to come from this tribe. So God is working behind the scenes, working out a plan that's going to continue, okay? And they happen to have a boy at a time when you didn't want to have a boy. Moses' mother saw something in her son, and she hid him for 3 months. Not an easy thing to do. I mean,
that's what I was about to say. We just had a puppy, baby dog, and he's whimpering. You can't just tell them to stop. They don't get it.
At 3 months, someone had to have seen that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh, she's not pregnant anymore. Where's the baby? So this is something the mother did I would say at risk of her life.
Yeah. Well, and it may have even stemmed earlier than that. She may just have not gone out in public being pregnant because of that being known.
How do you just act out of the ordinary? How do you just not go with the flow? If she did that, if she hid herself, there had to have been something.
Yeah.
And she looked at Moses and she saw something different in this child. And I don't believe it was just because it was her child. And then he had a sister, Miriam, had a brother, Aaron, and a father. So keeping this quiet, I mean, you know how kids are. If Miriam was 5 or 6 years older, they run and they tell everything on you. Oh, my mom can't sleep because the baby just keeps her up. You know, they say things. So to keep this baby hidden for 3 months was huge. And so this is the third woman. Moses' mother, we may discard her because she was the mother, but no, she was courageous, just like those midwives were. We are given the name of Moses' mother, Jochebed, and she did something amazing. Instead of throwing or having her son thrown into the Nile, she places him in a basket and puts him on the Nile. Instead of in the Nile, it's on the Nile. And the basket that she made is the same word that is used for the ark that Noah was in. And that's the only other time that that's translated, that the Hebrew word, the same word is used. She puts Moses in an ark, and he floats on the safety of the water, the very water that should have taken his life. Huge correlation between Noah and Moses. Moses was saved in the same type of vessel Noah was saved in. The waters that brought destruction to the world was the very waters that preserved Noah's life while he was in the ark. There is, of course, a big difference in the size, and I think I said that. Both point to a new creation. Noah, new world, new creation. God started a new world with Noah, and he's starting something new with Moses.
Wow, I've never heard that before.
And it's those little things that I pick apart verse by verse. I don't think his mother started out that way, saying, "Oh, I'm going to put him in an ark just like Noah." And it just kind of comes about. And so now we're in Exodus chapter 2, and his mother puts him in the ark, and she puts him out on the water in the Nile. And Miriam, his sister, watches to see what's going to happen. She can't be very old because she wasn't that much older than Moses. So she watches. His sister stood in a distance to see what would happen to him, to see what would happen to her brother. She has to love him. She has to be watching. What's mom doing? I wonder if the mother told Miriam, the sister, what was going to happen. I have no idea. So she puts him in the Nile. Then Pharaoh's daughter, we have Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slaves to get it. She opened it up and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. She had compassion. She was moved. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister, Moses' sister, pops up out of the reeds. Now that's going to take a lot of guts. Because at this time, is she going to just take the baby out and throw it into the Nile?
Right.
Well, what is she going to do? Because all we can see is that she recognized him. She felt sorry for him. But Miriam pops up, and she said to Pharaoh's daughter, the daughter of the man that is killing all the baby boys. Shall I go get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby? Wow. Think about that. Just think about that. That act. A little girl, can I go get? She knew enough to know we need to nurse the baby. You need somebody to feed it. And yes, go. Pharaoh's daughter said, yes, go. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman, Moses' mother, took the baby, her child, and nursed him. When the baby grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, I drew him out of the water.
Yeah, and you wonder, did Moses' mother somewhat hope for that outcome? We don't know. It doesn't say. It's possible. It's possible that they knew her bathing routine and wished and hoped for it to happen. Or it could have just been she just wanted to give the baby a chance, more than likely. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, but who did God use? Who did God work through to save the life of the deliverer of the Israelites? The Israelites' killer's daughter saved the man who will save the Israelites.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Well, and look at God. I don't even think it was a big thing. Nah, just put him in there, send him down. Pharaoh's daughter, I think I'm going to take a shower today. I think I'm going to go down by the Nile, bathe off. Miriam goes, look at that. Just ordinary acts, not huge things, just every day. Well, now granted,
Miriam's was pretty big, right? That took a lot of guts.
It took a lot of guts. So we've got the 2 Hebrew midwives.
That took a lot of guts.
Took a lot of guts. His mother took a lot of guts. Miriam took a lot of guts. It's going to take some courage.
And really even the daughter, too, to go against her dad.
This is true. Yes. So that's 5 women. Because...
with bold acts, I would say.
Because God will work through the most unlikely people because no one's paying attention to it. Why would God choose to work through my life? Because that's what he specializes in. And we're going to see that with Moses. We're going to see that he starts out maybe not in the best of situations, but God changes it. Then Exodus 2, verse 11. Moses has grown up. So we go from him going with his mother. Then we go from that to verse 11. One day after Moses has grown up, he went out to where his people were and watched them at their hard labor. Hidden years, we don't know. We just know he grew up. That reminds me of Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't talk about any of those years.
It doesn't. From the time that he was in the temple and his parents left him there and he was in and he said, shouldn't I be about my father's business? We don't hear any more about him until his ministry launches. Very, very similar. And so Moses is going out and he's watching his people in their hard labor. He's identifying as an Israelite, not necessarily as an Egyptian.
Even though he was raised in the best of Egyptian conditions,
yes.
Really,
So how did he know that? Well, we would only speculate. Did his mother tell him? So he sees an Egyptian beating. Now, I don't think this was just slap on the hand or don't you do that anymore. This was a beating to the point that it spurred Moses into action. And Moses, looking this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand.
It had to be like a defensive.
It had to have been. Well, and you also have to think, what was he going to do? Go up to the guy and say, you shouldn't do that. And he's going to say, and who are you? Oh, you're siding with your people? Moses looked around. There was no other solution. I am not justifying this at all. There was no other solution. And I believe it was justice. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for someone else. He was fighting against injustice.
Yeah.
The next day, he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, so he obviously knew you're in the wrong. Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew? Why are you acting this way? Legitimate question. And as all people who are in the wrong, they give you a really legitimate excuse, don't they? No, never. This is absolutely what most people, when you catch them in the wrong, this is what they do. He said, "Why?" He said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us?"
Mm-hmm. They turn it back on you.
They turn it on you. This is how you know if you're dealing with someone that has no intentions of changing. One way of knowing it.
Really good point.
I think it is. Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian? Oh, and then they're going to point out the wrong you've done. Not the wrong that they're doing at the moment. They're going to make you the bad guy. Then Moses was afraid and thought, what I did must have become known. And so he's faced with, this isn't going to be good. If these two people know about it, then everybody
others know too.
And so the next verse, when Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. So this is what we have in Scripture of Moses up to the time that he was approximately 40 years old. Okay? Moses is 40 when he flees to Midian.
I don't think I realized he was that old.
Yeah. That's a starting point. But you've gone through the teenage, you've gone through the awkward 20s. This is an interesting age. And his only option is to run. And it looks as if, wow, what was all that other trouble about? Why was he saved from the Nile? Why did he go into Pharaoh's house if he's just going to run away?
Yeah.
Right now we see the sort of man that Moses is. Just in these few verses, we see the man, the character of Moses. Moses had no choice but to kill the Egyptian. He had no choice, and he did it. What would have changed? Moses has an instinct to fight injustice and not to tolerate suffering. That's got to be a huge thing for someone who's going to be called a deliverer, for someone who's going to be a leader. You cannot tolerate the suffering of other people. Not just that you're uncomfortable, but people that you don't even know, you have very little in common with them. It's just that the whole thing is wrong. And Moses was willing to fight that. He tried to stop evil. He's not afraid to confront the act. And this is moral courage. Moses has moral courage. You do not need a great number of evil people, truly evil people, to carry out massive evil. And on the same hand, you do not need to have a large number of truly moral people. They just need to be courageous.
What a great takeaway. Yeah.
We just need to say, no, I don't agree with that.
Stand up. Yeah, stand up against injustices that you see. And we often see them, right? I mean, on a daily basis.
Then Moses did not have a slave mentality. This is huge. The Israelites were demoralized and could not cry out. They felt they deserved the treatment they were receiving, or they were hopeless and didn't feel there could be a change. The Egyptians had been successful in beating them down to where they felt subhuman.
Yeah, they didn't see a way out of their situation.
Moses did not live in that, and he did not have that mentality. Pretty cool. Moses was an Israelite, but he wasn't raised one, and he did not think like them. Moses chose to be an Israelite. Moses could have had a charmed life as an Egyptian, an elite, not just an Egyptian, but an elite Egyptian, but he did not. And this is the man that we meet.
And I think that's a really big point, because I don't know that I would have chosen the path that Moses chose.
Yes.
I don't know that I would have. I won't think that I would have. But if you didn't know any better and you were raised in that and you had the life of luxury at your fingertips, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find many that would choose to do the right thing.
And so we can see now a glimpse of Moses' heart. And see, this is what I mean by, I was hard on Moses. But when I took the time to look at these two acts in their context, I went, oh, wow. He wants to confront injustice. Mm-hmm. If it's the Egyptians, if it's the Israelites, it's just where it is. And we're going to see that he leaves and he goes to Midian. And we'll see the third act that Moses performs, fighting injustice, because he goes to the desert, he goes to a well, and we see that there's the daughters of this priest of Jethro. And they come to water their sheep. And the other shepherds come in and bully them and harass them and will not let them water their sheep. They make it such a horrible thing that these people have to go through every day. And Moses stands up to these bullies. He runs them off. He doesn't fight them. He doesn't curse them. He doesn't say, I'm going to find out where you... He stands up. They water their sheep and they go home early.
And I think a lot of times that's all it takes. It's just to stand up.
And we see that Moses stays in Midian. He tends the sheep. He marries. And he is there 40 more years. And now we're going to see the encounter that Moses has with God and how God will take his heart and build his faith and take away the fear and do the plan that he's had since the beginning. And so I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do you have any comments? Do you have anything to say?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things you brought up that I've never noticed. I've never noticed his age before. I had never really picked apart how they were all women. I've never put that pattern together. That's pretty neat. Mm-hmm. I've always focused on the injustice. Like, clearly Moses was very big on, he noticed things that were wrong and acted upon it. And that's a characteristic that I've always identified with Moses. Like, I was very much that way from an early on. Like, in school, I did not like for people to be mistreated. And that gets me going more than anything else. To this day, it still does. So I see some of that. I relate to that with Moses too. But yeah, some just really neat things. I've never noticed that Pharaoh's name was never mentioned.
Never mentioned.
But the midwives, they're mentioned.
They're mentioned. Miriam's mentioned. Moses' mother's name is mentioned.
And something else I've never thought about is that Aaron is his Hebrew brother. Also the deliverer, and Jesus being our deliverer, and the similarities between Moses and Jesus. I've never put that together either, but that's really cool.
I'm reading a book by a Jewish believer in Jesus, and it's titled Reading Moses and Seeing Jesus. And he relates how now, as he was raised Jewish, so he knows the Torah. And then after becoming a believer in Jesus, he sees the similarities. And whenever he's reading about Moses, he goes, oh, gee. And that they just point to each other.
Wow. That's really neat.
Yeah, it's very neat. And so if you know the Torah, if you know the Old Testament.
The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament.
Written by Moses. And we have that God tells Moses somewhere along in the wilderness, he says, write this down. Write these books down, and Moses recounts the history from the beginning of time.
What a great place to wrap up.
Yeah, so I'm going to close in prayer.
Okay.
Lord, we thank you for your goodness, for your plan, that you have a plan and you know how to work it. And some of the silly things that we do and some of the silly things that we think is not going to detour your plan. You've already taken that into consideration. And you can take our mistakes and change it into something that will change not only our life, but will have effects in the lives of others. Lord, I pray and ask that you strengthen us in your power to where we will stand for injustice, that we will see that it's all about either good or evil. It's not about the color. It's not about which ethnic group we come from. It's not about male or female. You're very clear in teaching us these things if we will see. Lord, open our eyes that we can see your will and your way. And again, we thank you and we remember your word and we remember what you have done, not only in the lives of those of the past, but those today and those that will come. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Once again, guys, we thank you so much for tuning in with us. We hope you're enjoying this series on Moses. I'm excited to keep going with it. But yeah, thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you back here next week with part 2 of Moses. Until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.
Bye.